Hello again guys, I'm back with part 2 of the fantasy redesign video. If you haven't watched part 1, please go and do so. I explain the lore of these characters and give context about the world they live in. And also if I sound crazy, it's because I'm kind of sick right now, so I might sound nasally and Squidward. But regardless, I'm just going to jump into it with our first character, the second character of the trio. Again, the first one is in part 1. But let's talk about Celeste New Valley. She used to be known as Iris, and before that she was known as Lucky, and she has changed substantially, a lot more than Reeve. As you can see in this first drawing of her, she was literally a white girl, and now she is a dark-skinned black girl with blue locks. But anyways, with her introduction out of the way, we can get into her speed paint. Also, I did this art so long ago that I literally forgot about something very important, which is that I forgot to press record on the first part of the speed paint, so we're starting about halfway through, but most of the good parts are still there, like me struggling to make her a staff. But my many shortcomings aside, let's get into her story. She's a half-elf wizard with a flair for the dramatic, and don't think of that in D&D terms. Half-elf wizard means something different in their universe. Her old storyline was that her mother was a stage magician and wanted her to follow in her footsteps, but she was like a rebel and decided to choose her own path.
No thanks. I choose my own destiny.
She wanted to be an adventurer and fight bad guys, slay monsters, and all around bask in the glory of battle, all while spiting her overbearing mother. The whole story is kind of giving Todoroki from MHA, especially when you take into account the fact that she used to have ice magic of all things. But I think she's very unique as a character now, post rewrite. So when I first began designing and rewriting her, the idea was that the situation would stay the same to the first iteration of her story, where her mom is a stage magician and she wanted her to sort of follow in her footsteps, but she wanted to go in her own direction and was like, no, I would like to be a battle magician. I want to go and fight monsters and things of that nature. So the idea was that she had rejected being a stage magician halfway into learning, so all the magic she knows is based off of her basis of stage magician magic. So she was supposed to have a subtle stage magician aesthetic, even though it ended up being sort of very overt. But I kind of flipped the script per the advice of my friend, which I'm very glad I listened to her about because I like this version of Celeste a lot more.
She's not supposed to really be a magician. Then why the fuck does she look like one? Her powers are magic. She's a fucking magician. Stop trying to be different and just say she's a fucking magician. You fucking dorky fucking corky be in a real TV show. I mean, yeah, with maybe a few more, because I feel like this is a very basic design. She doesn't really have any accessories. She doesn't really have anything I feel like you should give her a little magician hat. I feel like it would look so corny and dorky and cunt. I feel like it would look so good.
So after that meeting with my editor, I decided to rewrite the rewrite and take it from the top. But instead of her mom wanting her to be a magician, her mom wanted her to be her heir. But Celeste had a passion to perform and wanted to be a stage magician as well as a battle magician instead of living out the rest of her life in bureaucracy. And she lived with her mom and their side of the family in the castle, probably up until she was a preteen, 11 or 12. But eventually she was like, this world shit ain't really for me. At which point she ran away to find her dad, who she had been keeping in touch with, probably through letters that they would send back and forth. Her father is definitely no deadbeat. He definitely loves her, but I'm sure he was strong-armed by her mother's side of the family into relinquishing his parental rights, because she did technically have sort of obligations as a part of that family. And it's not like he could do much in retaliation anyway. He is just a carpenter. So he compromised as amicably as he could with the very entitled elven royalty and settled on just having long distance contact with his daughter. Something is better than nothing. So knowing where he lives from having to write his address on the letters that she would send to him, Celeste ran away to his home and of course he took her in. As for how her family reacted to this, I'm not exactly sure. I do know that this is a very juicy scenario and there could be a lot to write about here, but I haven't exactly gotten to it. I feel like her mom may have sent some servants and or guards to go and retrieve her once or twice and she just kept running away. Her mom just eventually gave up on that idea, probably after some coercing from other members of the family who wanted her gone anyway because she's not a full elf. So while her mom did also love her, she let her title and position in the sort of royal court outweigh her obligations towards her daughter. I don't know, it's kind of giving Game of Thrones. Also, I've never seen Game of Thrones. And when it comes to how her dad, who is very much a commoner, was able to get with her mom, who is literal nobility, I think he may have been hired to build some ornate wooden structures or make some sort of carving, and during however long that process took, he successfully bagged a royal. And that in itself is already a fanfic I would read. Anyway, he took Celeste in because he was never no deadbeat. and supported her dream of being the best regular magician and stage magician of all time. He probably built her a stage to perform her magic to the other residents of the city on when she was younger. Super adorable. And to this day, she still fights monsters and such, but she also likes to put on a show. And this is a redesign video, yet I have literally not talked about the design whatsoever besides her tiny hat. So I'm going to get into a little bit of my thought process as to what exactly I was putting into the design. Her clothes honestly didn't change much. I just changed her colors, took away her fur collar, and gave her an overcoat thing. Now her design is mostly just like a magician with a few fantasy elements like wizardy bell sleeves and her huge staff. I tried to make her outfit like a casual version of a magician, something that's more of an everyday fit but still has the magician vibe. You might also notice her star and moon motifs. It wasn't my intention to go in that direction with her at first, but when I was in the process of trying to pick out a new name for her because I didn't feel like Iris fit anymore, I went on FaceTime with my sister and asked her what she thought her name should be. And she said Celeste, and obviously the name Celeste has celestial vibes, so I ran with it and some of her jewelry and motif. When I asked my sister why she said the name Celeste, she said that it was because her hair was a really pretty shade of blue, and if she had to name that shade of blue, it would be Celeste. And that was really cute, and it gave me a little bit of like restoring faith in humanity moment, you know? In my script, it says I don't have a plot reason for naming her Celeste. Since then, I have done some cooking, and I do think that I'm going to be able to tie in narratively her name being Celeste. It has to do with the magic system, and again, that'll be a separate video. Tying back into her celestial vibes again, I think Celeste would have a connection to astrology. No, not astronomy, but astrology, as in like zodiac signs, Capricorn, Aries, Aquarius, and the moon cycle and stuff like that. Now, astrology will be playing a minor part in the magic system, but what I can tell you now is basically magic is split into two categories, what I would call arcane versus what I would call celestial. So when you think of an arcane magic user, think elemental. And when you think of a celestial magic user, think of more they're harnessing the power of a god. And usually gods will represent an emotion, a concept, or in this case, a zodiac sign. I don't know which one or ones she will have a connection with, but one of them. She would use arcane and celestial magic. And you might think that sounds kind of overpowered for her to be able to use two different magic types, but in reality, the arcane magic is really where most of her firepower would come from, which isn't to say that celestial magic is weak, but I would call it situational, especially to be using the power of the zodiac sign based gods. The gods that represent broad concepts are probably the strongest ones, which is kind of a Greek god thing. For example, someone using the power of the god of war might become super strong and durable, as well as like maybe being able to incite mass droves of people to violence and being able to make them fight on your side, as well as passing on your strength buffs to them, which is kind of villainous, but it's war. What did you expect? Also, this is all off the dome, and that's a really good idea, so I'm gonna actually write that one down. Whereas the zodiac signs might be directly weaker and also more situational. So for example, Aquarius may give you the ability to control water, even though it's an air sign, so I don't know how that works. If you saw part 1, I was talking about how the older generation in their universe have sort of old school beliefs, and mixing magics being forbidden would be one of those things. However, does Celeste care about that? I highly doubt it. She will continue to practice her magic and practice her magic shows, and good luck to anyone who tries to stop her. Now this brings the speed paint to a close. However, I did make bonus art pages for all 3 of these characters. For Celeste specifically, I made not only the bonus art page, but I made a entire bonus piece from one of the sketches from the bonus page. This was a quick and loose one, but I think it's pretty good. I actually forgot to include Reeves' page in his video, so I'm gonna put his right now, as well as the finished art. Again, if you haven't seen part 1, you should have gone and watched it a long time ago. This bonus page is just straight up extra content. You get to see his gauntlet in action. You get to see his sword transforming, as I was talking about. You get to see those Hermes boots I designed for him. It's really a shame I forgot to put it in that first video. Anyways, rantings and ramblings aside, that is all my notes on Celeste, and we can finally get into our third and final character, Wynn. Formerly known as Remy, you might notice this character does not have one of those cool portraits that I did for Reeve and Celeste. This is because Wynn often got the short end of the stick. I think I have the least art of them, and they were also the weakest character of the group, not only thematically, design-wise, but also power-wise. I think this character had a bit of 2020 syndrome, and I do say that in a nice way, as I myself did also. They went through a lot of stages, starting as sort of a botanist, then changing to like a potion maker, then an alchemist, then an engineer, which is what I ended up sticking with because I felt like it had the most room for creativeness in terms of what they can do with their creations. But anyways, let's get into their speed paint so I can tell you about how I turned the character that I like the least into the character that I see the most potential in. You might notice that this character looks totally different in the first sketch versus the last version, but that's just because I felt like the initial revamp of this character didn't fit into the sort of trio I was trying to create. Wynn, originally Remy, was a sweet, kinda shy, skinny, small kid who was extremely smart and half cat. They began as more of an alchemist or potion maker, and in my second pass I kept most of that the same but changed them from a scrawny alchemist to a buff engineer. But I felt like someone with such a gentle and kind demeanor would fall behind in the sort of environment that they'd be in, fighting and maybe having to kill enemies and generally being violent. So in their third and hopefully final rendition, I changed them into a scrapyard punk. In reality, all that changed from current Wynn to original Remy is their personality and how they use their genius, potions versus machines, and the fact that I changed them from being specifically a calico cat to sort of just a nondescript animal, like a mutt between a bunch of in-universe races, multiple types of beastmen. In their universe, there are races that have animal features, and originally they were half of one of those characters with cat features. Okay, I feel like keeping track of all three versions of this character might be getting difficult, so let's focus in on one I ended up sticking with. Wynn grew up in a bit of a slum, the outskirts of a big city where the poor are really poor and the rich are really rich. The farther to the edges of the city that you get, the more poor the people usually get as well. This is kind of reminiscent of Kill La Kill and that whole system that they have, but not as severe. Unlike the town that Wynn, Reeve, and Celeste go to school in, this one has more of a diesel punk aesthetic. It's an industrial as opposed to more magical city, where Wynn would have plenty of resources to practice their engineering. They grew up in a huge family, having multiple litters worth of siblings, like 15, give or take a few. And their parents were both technicians for the company that basically runs the city. So they do things like fix rail cars, run maintenance on smokestacks, and rewrite code for simple automatons or robotic helpers. Wynn grew up poor and underattended to, as their parents had an entire army of kids. So Wynn looked after themselves and made their own fun, creating gadgets, robots, and trinkets from scraps of metal and technology that they would find in the dumpsters of businesses and generally just laying around because I'm sure it was pretty trashy in a more slummish area. Wynn used their talent for mechanics and knowledge of all the common local tech which they got from their parents and studying the machines themselves to make money by selling gadgets and weapons they jerry-rigged from scavenged parts, and to repair machinery for people or businesses to make an easy dollar. After years, from their early teens into their late teens, of building a clientele as well as an entire junkyard of scavenged parts and failed or old inventions of theirs, which they use for any repair parts or maintenance for new projects they may need. Wynn had built a reputation for themselves throughout Petrol and even somewhat of a ghost of one in the neighboring city, the one that they all attend school together in now, and was a major help for themselves and their family in terms of money, considering how many of them there were to provide for. However, one day they got a visit from someone on behalf of the school/guild, which also really needs a name, to let them know that they were invited to enroll at the academy and develop their skills even more. So not wanting to miss out on an amazing opportunity, possibly one to make even more money, they accepted and left their junkyard and their business in the charge of their parents and whichever of their siblings decided to take up the trade as well. Wynn's main character arc is definitely about discovering the fact that not everything is about money, especially after moving to a different city where capitalism is no longer the prevailing structure. But I think they also could have a really cool story arc where they go back to their home city and try to get rid of the huge class divide, making life in Petrol better for everyone involved. Anyway, that was a lot of lore. Present day, they find themselves slightly outcasted at the academy, not only for being from a city with a different culture and stuff, but also the way they dress and kind of look like a dumpster driver mixed with a repairman, and all that in a sea of folks with proper tunics and like proper D&D attire. Magic is not a widespread practice in Petrol. Everything is machine powered, and the machines are usually powered by not so clean resources like gas and coal, but also sometimes electricity. And Wynn only knows one spell themselves, which is the good old Shocking Grasp, which they only ever use to kickstart machines that need a little extra jolt to get going. However, after enrolling and having full access to all the resources at the academy, they quickly took to using magic to power machines as opposed to electricity or gas. Using magic crystals led them to make tons of new inventions that can run like they have a mind of their own. And side note, artificery, which is what you call it when you mix magic and machines, is not something that Wynn invented, but it's something that is relatively new within their universe. powers, and again, something that is seen as taboo by the older generation, just like Celeste using multiple types of magic. And magic is also a much cleaner power source than anything they use in Petrol, so pollution would not be such a big issue. And that's another thing I think could tie back into their story, them returning to their home city and teaching the people there that there are renewable resources and you don't have to pollute the fuck out of everything just to have your machines. This is another line I think you should be able to draw between their world and the real world, but I'll let you guys connect those dots yourselves. Anyways, let's get into some of their magic powered inventions, starting with the one that you can see on the screen right now, their Tesla cannon, which is a huge weapon with the same form factor as a minigun, but instead of bullets it shoots, you guessed it, electricity. The Tesla cannon itself is pretty straightforward and boring. Winston from Overwatch did it first, but when you factor in the Tesla conductors, which are these little metal plates that fly around and arc electricity between themselves, the possibilities become a lot more exciting. With these, they can do things like make a dome of electricity around a given area, arc electricity between multiple targets or over long distances, and use them as individual rocket-powered blunt weapons. But that's not all, they also have the Mutt, which is a large, horse-sized, but dog-themed, pilotable mech equipped with many weapons. First, the flash cannon, which is actually just a laser it shoots from its mouth, but I imagine it looking just like how they animate the move flash cannon in Pokemon, so I'm gonna call it that. Dog breath, which is just a smoke screen or a noxious gas. Fire breath, which is self-explanatory, as well as its jaw itself and its metal claws, as well as a few smaller contraptions like a little yapper. All he does is produce a deafeningly loud noise when activated. And my friend actually came up with this one, so let's get a round of applause for Nate for being so creative, and also yelling at me on FaceTime when I was trying to get her to help me write the lore for this character. Yay, we love you, Nate! I feel like I went much more in depth about their fighting style than Reeve or Celeste, but I honestly don't know how I would explain it other than Naruto but magic and stage magician but to the death. Maybe I can make a little animatic or something to show them in action, but that is for a way later date. My next video is probably going to be something low-key like a sketchbook tour or a speed paint where I don't talk, because these last two videos were kind of exhausting to make. And I think that's all the time we have for today, but hold on. Do you want to do the outro with me? Yeah, you're gonna do the outro with me. I'm putting you right next to the mic. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe. Wait, no. But thank you guys so much for watching. Anyways, ignore her. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to see more from me. And if you didn't, please tell me why in the comments. I would be genuinely curious to know.
You would block that, be for real.
You can't block people on YouTube.
You'd block them in your mind.
This says something about your childhood. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to me to see more. With all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'm gonna go do something else now. I'm gonna go play Fortnite now, actually.
Oh, good God.